Midterm results are finally out, and the teacher is pretty much roasting the whole class for their terrible grades. Except for Aikita Mazamichi, who pulled off the top score in every single subject once again. The other students are losing their minds over it, but Aikita just plays it off like he got lucky. The teacher tells the rest of the class they need to start learning from him if they want any kind of future. They're already predicting he'll end up as a doctor or a government minister one day. Behind a polite smile, Aikita is actually looking down on them, thanking them for being dumb enough to make him look good. He's got his whole life planned out: Tokyo University, a high-paying job, and a perfect elite lifestyle. An unnamed Jairu student clings to his arm, begging the smart guy to help her study for the next round. He gives her a non-committal answer, internally annoyed by how much of a pain everyone is. But from the back of the room, Ikushima is watching him with a pretty intense stare. Without any warning, a punch connects right with Akita's jaw. Ikushima looms over him, accusing Akita of flirting with his girl. Akita can barely process the fact that he just got hit in the middle of the classroom. He wipes blood from his lip, internally calling the guy a primitive monkey for choosing violence over logic. He tries to brush it off and just leave, thinking he shouldn't waste his time on someone so beneath him. A heavy hand lands on his head, stopping him cold before he can take another step. Ikushima calls him out for his arrogant attitude and demands he get on his knees right now. Akita doesn't hesitate. He drops straight to the floor in full kowtow. In his head, he's rationalizing it as the smart move to avoid getting beaten into the hospital. He knows Ikushima is a national-level karate athlete, so fighting back would be suicide. He lets the delinquent enjoy his little power trip, convinced that people like him won't survive 5 minutes in the real world anyway. Aikita Mazamichi drops to his knees. He thinks it's the smartest way to end the confrontation without getting hurt. But then, a girl's voice cuts in, asking if they're done yet. Rikudu Setsuna is just crouching there, watching them with a calm smile. Aikita has no idea who she is. He's completely thrown off by her presence. She looks right at Ikushima and asks if he'll fight her next. The guy is speechless. Aikita watches her, convinced this girl is beyond weird. Ikushima decides he's had enough and walks away, giving Aikita one last warning to stay away from his girl. Aikita watches them both. He wonders if she actually just saved him. He looks at her standing there and starts to think maybe she's also playing it smart. He tries to thank her, but she ignores him, calling out to Ikushima to ask if he's running away. Ikushima stops in his tracks. She mocks him, saying a sportsman probably isn't allowed to get into real fights anyway. She doesn't stop there, telling him karate isn't even a real martial art. She starts breaking down the rules, saying it's all about points and pretending to hit. To her, it's just a sport like soccer. She even kicks a stray rock to emphasize her point. She stares him down, declaring that she's picking a real fight. That's the breaking point. Ikushima lunges forward with a high-speed strike. His fist flies toward her face, but she doesn't even move. The punch cuts through the air with a loud whoosh. Ikushima pulls the punch right at the last second. She just stares back, calling it nothing but intimidation. Ikushima thinks he's being clever by stopping his punch right at her nose to show off his control. Setsuna just gives him this creepy little smirk. He keeps his fist there, trying to act tough, but deep down he's already regretting this. Suddenly, she grabs his wrist and smacks him hard. She leans in and whispers that the real fight is only just beginning. He tries to fight back, but she just blocks him like he's a toddler, telling him to stop being so dramatic. She dodges his next strike without breaking a sweat. Aikita Mazamichi is just watching from the ground, totally losing his mind at what's happening. Ikushima is fuming because he can't land a single blow. She mocks him, asking if he was really supposed to be some national-level athlete. She just laughs, calling him completely average. That really sets him off, and Aikita can feel the tension hitting the roof. Ikushima tells her he's done holding back and that she's going to regret this. Setsuna thinks it's getting fun, but Aikita is already terrified for what's coming. The guy takes a massive breath to focus. This is his signature move, the one that made him a champion. Most people punch with their feet first to get leverage, but he's doing it differently, throwing the hand out first and then the foot just for raw speed. There's no wasted motion, just a pure blur aimed straight for her face. It's the kind of speed that you aren't supposed to be able to react to. He lets the lightning thrust fly, and it hits her right in the jaw. It looks like a massive hit, and Aikita is sure she's a goner. But no, she's still smiling, saying it was a decent effort. She's bleeding from her nose, but she just wipes it off and tells him his hit was way too weak to do real damage. She starts giving him pointers, saying you have to punch like you actually want to kill the person. Aikita is completely mesmerized, almost finding the way she dominates him beautiful. He can't help himself. He runs up and begs her to teach him how to fight. Setsuna looks surprised, like she didn't expect this smart kid to ask that. Aikita is convinced that if he learns her tricks, he'll finally be safe from bullies. He smiles to himself, thinking he's made another genius, calculated move. She pulls him in close, but there's no warmth in it. Out of nowhere, she delivers a brutal strike that sends him flying. Aikita hits the dirt, gasping for air. He sees blood on his hand and can't understand why she'd do this to him. She just stands over him, cold as ice. Then she tells him to start using his imagination. She brings up the savannah and how a lion doesn't care about anything while it's eating a zebra. She asks him if he'd ever be dumb enough to try and pet a predator in the middle of a hunt. Aikita tells her obviously not, because he'd get ripped apart. She gets right in his face and tells him that's exactly how the real world works. Rikudu Setsuna starts things off with a brutal kick right to the face. Akita Mazumichi reels back, spitting blood as she looks down at him, wondering why he thought he'd be safe. She looks at concepts like justice and morality as if they're just ink on a page. To her, every one of those social rules is a total fiction. She looms over him in the hallway, making it clear she can do whatever she wants with his life right now. Because in the end, violence is the only rule this world actually follows. Akita shivers on the floor, finally starting to understand her twisted reality. He's stuck on the ground, knowing she could end him whenever she felt like it. His hands are trembling against the concrete as all his logic fails him. He drops his head all the way down, completely submitting to her power. He's reduced to a dog begging for mercy while she just watches with a cold smile. She tells him to stay in that pathetic position for the rest of his life. Aikita knows this isn't exactly the smart move he usually prides himself on. Driven by pure shame, his body suddenly snaps and he lunges forward. He lets out a scream and throws a punch with everything he has left. Setsuna doesn't even move an inch. She just watches him with that same unsettling grin. She counters with a slap so hard it sends him flying, his world going black. He bolts upright in his bed, gasping for air as the nightmare finally breaks. A week later, he's back at school in a sling while a classmate asks where Kushima went. He tells himself he's too smart for violence and tries to convince himself it was all just a dream. He just wants to forget the whole thing. Sure, he'll never have to see her again. Akita Mazumichi sits at his desk, his arm in a sling and his face a mess of bandages. The teacher stands at the front, calling for the class's attention for a new arrival. Rikudu Setsuna stands before the students, looking like the picture-perfect transfer student. She lists off normal hobbies like cooking and sewing, but then she drops the word violence with a tiny smile. The class erupts in a laughter at what they think is a quirky joke. Aikita, however, is sweating bullets because he knows she's dead serious. Setsuna notices him and acts like she's found an old friend. The protagonist can only stare in horror as she points him out. When the teacher asks if they know each other, Setsuna gives a cheerful yes. Aikita is too stunned to even try to deny it. She gives him a look that says everything, whispering that they should do it again sometime. He knows exactly what kind of it she's talking about. It's been a week since she joined the class, and the tension hasn't let up. For Aikita, this is where the real nightmare begins. Every morning, Setsuna walks in with a bright greeting. To everyone else, she's just a charming new student. The girls in the class have already taken a liking to her, greeting her with plenty of energy. She plays the social game perfectly, chatting with her new friends while Aikita watches from his desk, still traumatized. He watches her blend in, but his mind is stuck on their first encounter. He knows the predator lurking under the school uniform. He flashes back to the moment she appeared out of thin air and completely dismantled the school's top fighter, Ikushima. Then he remembers her turning that same terrifying focus onto him. The memories are visceral, the sound of his own bones breaking and a long list of injuries that kept him in the hospital for weeks. In the present, the physical pain hasn't gone away, and his resentment is only getting stronger. Setsuna approaches his desk with a polite greeting, acting like nothing ever happened. Aikita is losing his grip on his composure. She innocently asks how he's feeling. At the breaking point, Aikita stands up and yells at her for being the one who wrecked his body. The classroom falls into a heavy silence as everyone stops what they're doing to look at him. A blonde student nearby looks concerned, asking why he's suddenly shouting at the new girl. Aikita realizes he just blew his cover. He tries to sink back into his seat, telling himself he needs to act wisely and stop drawing attention to himself. When the other student asks Setsuna if she knows why Ikushima has been absent, she just tilts her head and plays innocent. Aikita knows the truth. She's the one who put him out of commission. Aikita Mazumichi keeps his mouth shut about the beating he took. He figures Ikushima is doing the same out of embarrassment. He just wants to stay as far away from Setsuna as possible until he graduates. Outside of school, life goes on. Aikita takes the train home, trying to put the day's insanity behind him. But he can't escape her that easily. He spots Setsuna standing on the same train car, looking as calm as ever. He watches her intently until she finally gets off at Meshuka Station. Once she's gone, he finally lets out a sigh of relief and relaxes his shoulders. Later, Aikita finds himself in a busy entertainment district, the bright lights a stark contrast to his dark mood. For some reason, he's following her. He tells himself he's just curious about what a girl like Rikudo Setsuna does with her time after school. He wonders if she actually lives in a place like this. It doesn't seem to fit the image she projects at school. Suddenly, Akita's luck turns. He accidentally bumps into a blonde delinquent girl, and she immediately starts screaming about how much her skirt cost. Zen, the host, steps in and gives Aikita a cold, shark-like grin. He suggests they go somewhere private to have a little talk. Back in the alley, Aikita doesn't even try to fight back. He pulls out his wallet and starts counting out bills. 1, 2, 3. He hands over a stack of cash, and Zen confirms the payment with a satisfied look. The girl is thrilled, thanking Zen for the easy money. Zen warns Aikita that he's lucky he was carrying cash, or things would have ended a lot worse. Internally, Aikita is seething. He thinks they're just mindless thugs for shaking him down over something as trivial as a bumped shoulder. He looks at the group and tells himself that even if they combined all their brains, they still wouldn't match his intellect. To him, this whole situation is just primitive bullshit. He rationalizes his submission, deciding that fighting is for fools who don't think about the consequences. To him, avoiding violence is the mark of a superior mind. Zen and the girl walk away, giving him a mocking farewell. Aikita just stands there, taking the humiliation. But then, a familiar figure appears at the end of the alley. Setsuna is just standing there, watching the whole scene unfold in silence. Aikita is shocked to see her and immediately wonders if she's there to save him. Zen is just confused, asking if Aikita actually knows this girl. Setsuna doesn't say a word. She just starts walking toward them, looking completely unfazed by the three men. Aikita starts to panic. Even if she's strong, he doesn't think she can actually win a 3-on-1 fight against grown men. Before he can process anything, she breaks into a sprint. Akita's heart sinks as he realizes she's actually going to try and fight them. But she doesn't aim for the thugs. Instead, she leaps into the air and delivers a brutal kick straight to Akita's face. The impact sends him crashing to the ground, blood spraying from his nose as his glasses fly off. Aikita grovels on the pavement, clutching his face in absolute confusion. He has no idea why he was the target. He screams at her, asking what the hell she's doing. Setsuna just looks down at him, casually mentioning that she was trying to knock him out. She leans in with a terrifyingly sweet smile, telling Aikita that his reaction wasn't like him at all. Aikita is left reeling, both physically and mentally. He has no clue what she means by not like him. Setsuna turns her attention back to the thugs and asks if they're ready to go. Aikita tries to warn her to look at the situation, but she's already moving on. Zen has had enough of the drama and starts shouting. He thinks she's just putting on a cheap act to try and escape, and he threatens to kill her. Instead of preparing to fight, Setsuna starts unbuttoning her school blouse, slowly revealing her black lace bra. The sight completely catches Zen off guard. His aggressive stance vanishes, replaced by a sleazy, distracted grin. He starts talking about a sweet job she could do to pay off her boyfriend's debt, completely blinded by what he's seeing. Setsuna plays along, asking if he's mad and telling him his face is cute. She's leading him right into a trap. She pulls her collar open even wider, making Zen more confused than ever. He asks if she's trying to promote nonviolence or something. That's when she strikes. In the blink of an eye, she grabs Zen by the neck and slams his head into the concrete wall with a sickening snap. Zen's head bounces off the wall, and blood immediately starts pouring from his nose. He's completely dazed and out of the fight. Grabbing someone by the neck right in front of them is usually a suicidal move, but Setsuna made it look like a death sentence. Zen's friends are paralyzed with shock. They can't believe their leader was taken down so easily after being distracted for a split second. Setsuna looks over her shoulder with a cheerful smile, confirming that yes, she definitely intends to hit them too. One of the other thugs tries to lunge at her, his face twisted in rage. He can't let a high school girl make fools of him. Setsuna doesn't even flinch. She meets his charge head-on, her movements precise and lethal. She lands a powerful blow that sends the man reeling back. The sport of karate has nothing on her raw into social violence. Rikudo Setsuna stands calmly in the middle of the alleyway, surrounded by the broken bodies of the men she just dismantled. Zen and his friends are barely conscious, groaning as they clutch their injuries. The one-sided beatdown was as efficient as it was brutal. The delinquent girl is the only one left standing, and she's trembling with pure terror. She looks at Setsuna like she's staring into the face of a monster. She drops her shopping bag and starts to scramble backward, screaming at Setsuna to stay away from her. The girl's bravado has completely evaporated. Desperate, she tries to appeal to social norms, shouting that Setsuna wouldn't possibly hit a woman. But Setsuna doesn't care about norms. She delivers a heavy punch that catches the girl right on the cheek, cutting her plea short. Wiping a splash of blood from her face, Setsuna calmly notes that violence is equal for everyone, completely disregarding the concept of gendered immunity. From the ground, Aikita Masamichi watches in stunned silence. He's terrified not just by her strength, but by how easily she turned 4 people into a bloody mess. To him, it's clear that this girl possesses a fundamental lack of awareness when it comes to social norms and boundaries. She hits because she wants to hit, with absolutely zero hesitation. In Akita's eyes, she is someone who completely disregards the rules of society. As she turns her gaze toward him, the only word that comes to Akita's mind is antisocial. She's a force that doesn't fit into the world he knows. Fearing for his life, Aikita manages to scramble to his feet and raises his fists in a desperate, trembling fighting stance. Setsuna looks at him with genuine confusion, asking why he's suddenly acting so hostile. Aikita nervously asks if he's the next one on her list. She lets out a light, innocent laugh and opens her hands to show she isn't holding any weapons. She claims she has no intention of hitting him, but Aikita isn't buying it after the flying kick he just took to the face. Setsuna tilts her head and gives him a sweet, blood-stained smile. She softly asks if they aren't friends, using her charm as if she didn't just commit a multiple assault. Aikita is left staring at her, completely speechless. The word friends feels surreal coming from a girl who seems to live in a world governed only by violence. Inside a nondescript lounge, Ikushima and the other goons look like they're waiting for a death sentence. Shuji sits back, looking completely unbothered while he toys with the woman at his feet. He leans in, mocking his subordinates for getting their asses handed to them by a lone high school girl. Ikushima tries to find the words to explain how a student could be that dangerous. One of the goons suggests she must be some kind of martial arts prodigy to pull that off. The subordinate points to his broken nose as proof, but Shuji just treats the whole thing like a joke. Shuji pulls the woman close, whispering that she's failing to entertain him. With zero hesitation, he strikes her, sending the girl crashing to the floor in a heap. The room goes quiet as the boss considers his next move. He decides they aren't going to let this slide. They're going to kidnap Setsuna. The idea of kidnapping a student has Ikushima breaking out in a cold sweat. Shuji's eyes sharpen as he imagines the profit they can squeeze out of her. Zin worries that this is a one-way ticket to a prison cell, but the boss doesn't care about the law. Shuji sighs and walks off, complaining that his men have gone soft. He grabs the girl by the hair again, telling her she needs to toughen up. He starts loosening his belt, preaching about the absolute power of muscle. The woman can only cower in silence as he talks about feeling like a god. He tells his men that having a woman at your mercy is the ultimate proof of dominance. He forces her head down, treating her like nothing more than trash. Then, with a casual smile, he tells everyone it's time to hit the gym. Meanwhile at school, Setsuna Rikudu tracks down Aikita and cheerily invites him to lunch. Aikita Masamichi tries to back away, but she's already prepared a special bento just for him. He looks down at a box packed with enough protein to make a bodybuilder blush. The girl explains that all that chicken and broccoli is meant to heal the injuries she gave him. Aikita takes off his glasses, trying to make sense of the person sitting across from him. He asks if they're actually friends, and Setsuna gives him a bright, enthusiastic yes. He can't help but think about the brutal beatdown she gave him just the day before. The student looked her in the eye and asks the one question on his mind. Why him? He points out that there are plenty of guys out there way stronger than a nerd like him. Setsuna just laughs it off, saying strength has nothing to do with making friends. She leans in close, telling him that deep down, the two of them are exactly the same. Aikita is left frozen in place, unable to process what she means by that. He demands to know how they're alike, but she just hides behind a playful giggle. A classmate interrupts them, teasing Aikita about having a lover's quarrel. In his head, Aikita tries to reconcile the violence with his own sense of dignity. Setsuna tells him it's about having the resolve to do what's necessary when the time comes. Later that night, Zen stands by a van in a parking lot, looking incredibly hesitant. He asks Ikushima if they're really going through with a kidnapping plan. The blonde delinquent tells him to back out if he's scared, but warns him that Shuji doesn't tolerate cowards. He explains how Shuji's business traps women in debt before forcing them into the sex industry. The whole system relies on making sure those women never even think about running away. Zen wonders if it's done through kindness, but Ikushima clarifies it's the exact opposite. Shuji is mid-lecture, explaining that the only way to break someone's will to escape is through relentless violence. Zen stands nearby, sweating as he remembers the rumors about women who didn't survive beatings like this. Elsewhere, a driver gets his orders to stop the chatter and focus on the job. The target, Setsuna Rikudu, is spotted walking home, completely unaware of the van trailing her. The goons plan to snatch her quickly, not caring how many witnesses are around. The van screeches to a halt, and the side door slams open. A couple of thugs jump out and grab the girl, trying to force her inside. They manage to pull her in, slamming the door shut as the van peels away. But something goes sideways. The window shatters as if someone just tried to kick their way out. Inside the lounge, things are deceptively quiet for a moment. Shuji picks up his phone, checking in to see if the kidnapping went off without a hitch. He's a little busy with the woman at his feet, so he tells his guys to quit bothering him. Instead of his goons, he hears a girl's voice on the line. Setsuna has already taken out his men and stole the phone. Shuji loses his mind, screaming into the receiver at the brat, who's making him look like a fool. His eyes bulge with pure rage as he threatens to track her down and burn her life to the ground. Setsuna doesn't even flinch, telling him he better come apologize before she decides to slaughter his whole family. She sounds bored as she asks if he's really trying to pick a fight with her. That's the breaking point. Shuji's face contorts into something truly demonic. The girl keeps her cool, formally introducing herself before the real chaos starts. Shuji hangs up, brooding on his couch about how much he despises being talked down to by a woman. He lets out a frustrated sigh, wondering if this Rakuto girl is always such a pain in the ass. He turns his attention to Aikita Mazamichi, who's been sitting there watching this whole nightmare unfold. Aikita can barely find his voice, just nodding along to whatever the monster says. Internally, the poor guy is panicking, realizing he's in the worst possible situation. He flashes back to being shoved into a car right after school and hauled off to this den of thugs. Looking at Shuji, he realizes he's dealing with a low-life gangster who probably doesn't have an honest bone in his body. He stares at the floor, wondering if he's even going to make it out of this room alive. Shuji starts tallying up the bill, medical fees and compensation totaling a cool 3 million yen. He offers Aikita a way out, suggesting he can earn a cut by pimping out his classmates. Then his tone shifts as he mentions returning the favor for what Setsuna did to his crew. He winds up a massive fist, and for a second, Aikita is sure his life is over. The kid snaps, shouting that everything about this situation is just completely wrong. He remembers how Setsuna treats him, and realizes she isn't a friend. She's just another source of violence. The student flinches as the boss leans in, expecting a blow that's going to end him. But Shuji just laughs, finding it hilarious that Aikita is just as much a victim as his own men. He decides they're on the same team now, leaving Aikita wondering if he just narrowly avoided a beating. Shuji gets back to his philosophy, preaching that muscle is the only thing that commands respect. He forces the traumatized woman toward Aikita, telling him that women are weak and only respond to power. He mocks the kid's scrawny frame, telling him he really needs to start hitting the gym. Then comes the ultimate humiliation as Shuji asks if he's a virgin, and Aikita is forced to admit it. Shuji scoffs, telling him that being a weak virgin is exactly why women look down on him. He calls it fate, encouraging the kid to take what he wants from the woman to prove his manhood. Shuji flashes a predatory smile as he tells the kid that it's perfectly fine to violate the woman in front of him. Aikita's face turns bright red from a mix of shock and pure embarrassment, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. He tries to stammer out an excuse about the money, but Shuji just tells him to stop holding back and treat it like a free service. The gangster orders the woman to get him in the mood, and Aikita panics as she moves toward him. The kid is spiraling, worried that if he refuses too forcefully, these thugs will just find a different way to make his life a living hell. He thinks he has no choice but to sacrifice his virginity right here and now, just to stay in Shuji's good graces. But as the girl gets closer, he notices the faint bruises scattered across her skin, a clear sign of the abuse she's endured. Shuji casually mentions that she's already been with dozens of guys to pay off her debt, so there's no reason for Aikita to feel guilty. He keeps dehumanizing her, calling her nothing more than a tool or a plaything while resting a heavy hand on her head. Aikita watches her hand reach for his heart sinking as the reality of the situation finally starts to set in. Aikita tells the girl she doesn't have to go through with it, while Shuji looms in the background. He says no. Shuji just asks if he's trying to hide how embarrassed he is. Aikita tries to use logic to stay out of it, claiming he's not a hero, just someone who hates seeing people forced. He snaps and screams that forcing someone into sex is the absolute lowest thing you can do. Shuji just pats the girl like a pet and mocks the kid for talking such a big game. Then the boss leans in and points out that despite all the talk, Aikita is physically reacting to the situation. Aikita freezes as the reality sinks in. Shuji loses it, laughing like a maniac at the honor student's expense. The goons join in, howling at the kid's total humiliation. Even the girl he was trying to save covers her mouth to hide a laugh. Shuji's laughter fills the room as he enjoys the psychological breakdown. Akita's mind drifts to the law and assault crimes, but he realizes those rules don't exist here. He lets go of his restraint and lands a square punch right on Shuji's face. He remembers all the nights he spent haunted by the times he stayed quiet. The moments when his dignity was threatened and he did nothing. He clenches his fist, deciding that some moments require strike. Standing over the guy he just hit, Aikita screams, "Long live violence." It's the first time in his life he's ever actually hit someone. Everything he've been bottling up comes pouring out in that one moment. His brain goes into overdrive, flooded with a rush of chemicals more addictive than any book. He's bloodied and beaten, but for once, he doesn't feel a thing. Shuji wipes his mouth, looking more annoyed than anything. He calls Aikita a crazy bastard for actually having the guts to swing at him. Aikita looks down at his hand, already worried about the bruises he's going to have. Shuji decides he's going to return a favor with 5 more punches to the face. But before he can move, Setsuna Rikudu appears at the door. Shuji recognizes her immediately as Aikita looks up at the girl who changed his life. She doesn't say a word, just stares him down with those cold eyes. Shuji mocks her, asking if she's scared now that she's seen her boyfriend like this. He starts spewing threats about what he's going to do to her before she dies. Setsuna just smiles and asks if he's the type of dog that barks but doesn't bite. Shuji's expression shifts to something much darker. He tosses his jacket aside. It's time to see if she's actually as tough as they say. He throws a massive punch, but Setsuna slips it with ease. She counters instantly, her fist connecting with a sickening thud. She moves right into his space, completely unfazed by his size. For her, the concepts of threat and mercy are gone. It's just pure combat now. Shuji realizes he can't drop his guard. He raises his fists, finally taking her seriously. Setsuna's footwork is perfect as she steps in for the next exchange. She grabs hold of him before he can react. In a flawless combo, she pulls his head down and smashes it straight into her knee. But even after taking that hit, Shuji just grins. Apparently, he's got a plan. Shuji doesn't know a thing about formal martial arts, but his line of work has given him enough street fighting experience to rack up more than a few wins. He's a pro at taking hits without letting them land on his vital spots, and he's using every bit of that brute strength now. He expects to send a girl flying like a rag doll. It's a bad strategy, but he thinks it's enough. Setsuna just looks at him, unimpressed. The kind of shallow, predictable thinking isn't going to get him anywhere near a victory. Shuji smiles, bragging that sheer force is all that matters in a real fight. He's about to give her a lesson. He screams at her to get up, clearly not satisfied with just landing a few hits. He wants her dead. He charges in again, putting all his weight behind another strike. But Setsuna ducks and weaves through his aggression with ease. Shuji is confused for a second, wondering what she's even trying to do as she gets in close. This is what they call a crossguard in judo, a technique specifically designed to control your opponent with your legs. By tangling him up, she makes it way harder for him to land any meaningful hits. Shuji is furious, calling her a piece of shit as he tries to break free, but she's already transitioning to her next move. She uses a technique called the kusakari, sweeping his legs right out from under him. Before he even hits the ground, she's already moving to mount him and take total control. She mocks him, asking if sheer force is still all that matters. He's completely pinned, and he knows it. Setsuna smiles down at him, promising to teach him something better. In her world, the only thing that truly matters is violence. She's achieved the mount position, one of the most dominant spots you can find yourself in. There's no other position that's more simple or effective. It's the peak of MMA efficiency. The greatest advantage is that you can restrain your opponent using only your lower body, leaving your hands free for whatever comes next. Shuji groans in pain as she starts letting the punches fly. She even giggles, telling him his attempts to fight back actually tickle. The power difference is embarrassing. Even if the person on the bottom manages to strike back, the effect is minimal compared to the damage they're taking. From up here, she can strike with her full strength while he's left flailing his shadows. Shuji screams in agony, but there's no escape from the mount once someone like her has it. She maintains her balance perfectly, shifting her weight back and forth to counter his every move. Of course, there are ways to escape the mount position, but they only work if you know exactly what you're doing. Without practice, or even basic knowledge, there's absolutely nothing you can do when you're getting punched in the face the moment you slip up. The mount position is nothing less than an inescapable prison of fists. Shuji's internal monologue reveals his desperation. He thinks back to how women used to mock him before he found strength at the gym. Strength saved him. It made him popular and powerful. He truly believes that as long as he has his muscle, he could do anything. He lets out a final, desperate scream, putting everything he has into one last push. But Setsuna just keeps smiling. She bashes his face in again and again, completely unfazed by his struggle. She acknowledges his worldview. Only the strongest win in a fight. It's a simple way to look at the world. However, she thinks violence is something much deeper and far more interesting than just brute force. The fight is over. Blood is splattered across the floor as Shuji lies there, broken. Aikita asks what happened to the girl they were fighting over. Setsuna just says it looks like she ran away. Shuji is a mess on the floor, barely recognizable. Aikita asks if he's even still alive. Setsuna casually dismisses it, saying he's probably fine since he looks like he's used to taking a beating. She asks Aikita if he's okay or if he needs to go to the hospital. He just stays silent, staring at the ground. Aikita finally snaps. He tells her this is all her fault. His life was supposed to be a tranquil walk towards success, not this hell. He blames her for everything, getting into a fight with those guys, him getting kidnapped, and the beating he took. Setsuna Rikudo. He repeats her name with pure frustration, his hands trembling with rage. But then his expression changes. He admits that hitting someone who pissed him off actually felt really good. Aikita Masamichi stands amidst the wreckage of the room, his eyes fixed on Setsuna Rikudo as he makes a life-changing request. He wants to teach him how to fight. Setsuna Rikudo tilts her head, a curious and knowing smile playing on her lips as she asks him why he suddenly wants to learn. With blood still staining his face and a new fire in his eyes, Aikita Masamichi declares his true motive. He wants to be strong enough to hit her back. Delighted by his answer, Setsuna Rikudo pulls him into a tight embrace, officially welcoming him into the dark and visceral world of violence. The scene shifts to a quiet night under the glow of a full moon, where whispers of a tsujijari, of a random attacker, begin to circulate through the city. Two men lounging outside mock the rumors, finding the idea of an old-school street attacker ridiculous in this modern era. They continue to gossip about this mysterious figure who has been going around picking fights with anyone he comes across for no apparent reason. One of the delinquents scoffs at the threat, confident that his time at the gym has made him strong enough to knock out any random idiot who challenges him. Suddenly, a voice breaks through their conversation, casually commenting on the beauty of the night as a figure approaches from shadows. Aikita Masamichi stands before them, his face bandaged, but his expression full of a newfound, predatory confidence as he asks if they want to fight. Aikita Masamichi bumps into a guy on the street. Neither of them made the slightest effort to move out of the way. The street thug immediately starts acting like it was all Akita's fault, getting right his face. Seeing that the boy isn't backing down or apologizing, the man just gets more riled up. It's the perfect setup for a fight. 1 week later at school, Aikita reflects on the incident. He's finally managed to return to a relatively peaceful routine, except for the fact that Setsuna Rikudo is still sitting right next to him every single day. A local delinquent named Ikushima is already giving them a hostile look. Setsuna notes that he won't even say hello. An unnamed Jiru student tries to play it off, saying Ikushima is just shy despite his rough appearance. She asks Aikita if he doesn't think the guy is a total cutie pie. Aikita is too stressed to even respond. Ikushima is fuming in the background, promising that both of them are going to pay for this. The Jiru student tells him to cool it, but the damage is already done. Thanks to his proximity to Setsuna, Aikita has managed to earn himself even more unnecessary hatred. He realizes that nothing will ever change unless he finds a way to actually beat her. The scene shifts back to the previous week, shortly after their first encounter. They're on the school rooftop. Setsuna asks if he really wants her to teach him how to fight. When he confirms it's so, he can eventually take her down, she just laughs. She's genuinely delighted. She suggests he starts off by picking a fight with some random thug on the street. Aikita is stunned. That wasn't exactly the kind of lesson he was expecting. She explains it'll help him gauge his current ability. Aikita starts panicking, reminding her he's just an ordinary guy with zero fighting experience. He's convinced that if he tries to pick a fight, he'll just end up getting pulverized. Setsuna looks at him with a mix of pity and amusement, flat out calling him a fool. She asks why he wants to learn so badly if he's this terrified of the reality of combat. Claiming she's a kind teacher, she decides not to abandon him and offers to teach him a single technique. She says that with this one move, he can win almost any encounter with ease. Aikita is skeptical. It sounds more like a shady late-night infomercial than actual martial arts. She begins the demonstration, and Aikita watches with intense focus. We cut back to the street confrontation from earlier. To the street thug's shock, Aikita actually drops into a combat stance. The man just laughs at him. He doesn't take the challenge seriously at all. To a bully like him, someone who looks weak is supposed to be obedient and take whatever's coming. He sees the sign of resistance as nothing more than a reason to beat the boy one-sidedly. This guy has dished out more violence than he can count, and he's used to people shutting up after a single punch. But this time, Aikita has Setsuna's advice ringing in his ears. The most important thing is to strike first. She warned him that if he takes a hit, he'll never get the chance to strike back. She promised that the technique she's about to show him is perfectly suited for ending things in one blow. The thug taunts him, asking if he's scared, and tells him to come and get it. Setsuna's lesson continues. The move originated in Muay Thai and has been used to wreak havoc around the globe. The thug lunges forward with a threat, but Aikita is already moving. It's a move so effective that it became a mandatory standard in modern mixed martial arts. It allows you to attack from a range so far back that a counterattack can't even reach you. You just take a sudden leap forward and swing your leg like you're kicking a soccer ball. Aikita Mazumichi puts everything he's got into a single devastating calf kick. The strike connects perfectly with the street thug's leg, exactly like Setsuna taught him. The calf kick is a brutal move designed for maximum damage with minimum effort. It targets the tibialis anterior muscle, one of the most vulnerable and softest spots on the leg. The impact is immediate. If we had to sum up the result in a few words, it's painful as hell. The thug collapses, clutching his leg in pure agony. The guy groans on the ground, his previous arrogance completely shattered. Aikita can't believe it. He actually landed the hit and won his very first fight. The thug is still fuming, demanding to know what Akita's problem is. Aikita is suddenly at a loss. He's won, but he has no idea what he's supposed to do next. The thug starts shouting death threats, trying to mask his fear with more rage. Aikita starts to panic. He doesn't know any other moves, and his opponent still seems full of energy. The man lunges forward again, but his body isn't listening to him anymore. He realizes too late that the calf kick has another major consequence beyond just the pain. The tibialis anterior muscle is what stabilizes your legs. If it's incapacitated, even staying upright becomes impossible. The thug's leg gives out entirely, and he starts pleading for Aikita to wait. It's over. The once threatening bully is now just a heap on the sidewalk. He begs for mercy, completely giving up as he realizes he can't even stand. He pleads with Aikita to spare him, his tough guy persona completely gone. Aikita is stunned by the realization. He actually did it. He really won. In that instant, everything he believed about violence being purely evil changed. That was just the perspective of the loser. As the victor, he feels a surge of power he never could have imagined. This is what it means to win. The scene shifts back to school. Setsuna is leaning over him with a playful smile. She congratulates him on his first successful fight, looking genuinely proud of her student. Aikita is skeptical, asking if she's actually praising him for once. She admits she thought he'd lose his first few attempts. She acknowledges that he learned the technique far better than she expected. She asks him to demonstrate it on her right now, wanting to have a taste of his progress. Aikita warns her that he won't hold back, determined to show her how much he's improved. Setsuna just gives him that same manic, knowing smile as she waits for the strike. He lunges forward and delivers a textbook calf kick, exactly as he did to the thug. But this time, something is very wrong. Akita's eyes go wide with shock. Instead of Setsuna collapsing, it's Aikita who's howling in pain, clutching his own leg. Setsuna laughs, explaining that while his kick was perfect, she used a cut to counter it. By simply aligning her shin with his kick, she turned all of his own power right back onto him. The best way to learn is with your body. She points out that since he's going to keep picking fights, he needs to know that people will use techniques like this against him. Aikita is frustrated, arguing that there's no way random thugs are using advanced moves like that. Setsuna just smiles. The scene shifts to a press conference. A journalist asks the champion how he feels after taking the title. Subaru looks completely at ease, claiming he's simply proved he's the strongest fighter in Japan. A reporter tries to challenge him, bringing up the former champion, Kamiza May. Fua doesn't even blink at the mention of the national treasure. He says that while he respects Kamiza as a fellow athlete, he doesn't see him as a real threat to his position. Subaru continues his provocative interview, dismissing the rules that define professional combat. To him, weight classes and gender divisions only turn the pure pursuit of strength into a mere sport. With a calm, predatory smile, the MMA heavyweight champion declares his ultimate goal. He doesn't just want to be the best in his league. He wants to be the strongest in the entire world. On the screen of Akita's phone, a replay of the championship match plays out. It wasn't the competitive clash people expected. It was turning into a complete demolition. Only 3 rounds into his debut, Subaru makes the reigning champion look like an amateur, effortlessly evading every fierce attack. The momentum shifts instantly as Fua's counterattack lands with pinpoint precision, sending the champion staggering back. Before his opponent can recover, Fua follows up with a thunderous punch. The force behind the strike is enough to end the fight then and there. It's over. The champion hits the floor and can't get up. Fua stands victorious after a legendary cross-counter. The headline flashes across the smartphone screen. The new heavyweight champion is Subaru, the strongest man in all of Japan. Aikita stares at the screen, captivated by the display of raw power. To him, the way Fua fights is simply so cool. Sitting alone on a bench, he realizes that compared to a monster like Fua, he would be beaten to a pulp in seconds. It's been a few days since Aikita won his first fight, but the initial excitement has worn off. Now, he's just worried about what comes next. He wonders if he can even win his next fight. If his opponent knows anything about MMA, they'll counter his calf kick, and he won't be able to fight at all. He realizes he can't keep going if he only knows one move. He needs more than just a single trick to survive. Watching the professional matches, he sees that mastering solid defense and counterattacks is just as important as the offense itself. Driven by his growing anxiety, he decides he has no choice but to ask for help. That's why, Rikudu, he begs Setsuna to teach him a new technique, but she refuses immediately, telling him it's not wise to get distracted by other moves when he's only just started. She leans in, reminding him that he already knows a very effective move. Aikita is bewildered, unable to understand her reasoning. Setsuna asks why he's so desperate to learn something new to begin with. She seems more interested in his motivation than his training. Aikita shouts back in frustration. The calf kick isn't enough anymore. After being easily blocked by her, he feels completely useless in a real fight. If I knew more moves, he starts to argue, but Setsuna playfully finishes his thought, teasing him for thinking it would make him feel any more confident. Setsuna explains her philosophy. There's no such thing as being at ease in a violent world. To her, violence is absolute. There are no victims, only winners and losers. Back on the school roof, Aikita takes the lesson to heart, finally admitting he gets it. But he's done with her methods. He tells her he's going to find a teacher who actually makes sense. Setsuna just watches him walk away, looking almost disappointed in his little rebellion. Aikita heads to the Versus martial arts gym, hoping to find some logical strength. He steps inside, trying to act like he belongs even though he's clearly terrified. A tall guy with bandages on his face greets him. He's been waiting for Akita's reservation. Aikita freezes when he gets a good look. This guy is way too familiar. He realizes he's standing in front of Fuwa Subaru, the actual heavyweight champion. Aikita can't believe a pro like him spends time teaching ordinary people for a living. Fuwa laughs it off, saying training doesn't pay the bills and his team is pretty stingy. He seems like a genuinely great guy, suggesting they start training to blow off some steam. Aikita is sold. Compared to Setsuna, this guy is a saint. He heads off to the locker room, feeling like he finally caught a break. And he sees a familiar face pressed against the gym window. His heart drops. Setsuna walks right in, acting like a jealous girlfriend and accusing him of cheating. She doesn't stay mad for long. She's just thrilled to see a heavyweight like Fuwa is here. She brings up an old quote of his about how only heavyweight fighting is real martial arts. Fuwa doesn't back down. He stands by it. Everything else is just a sport. He explains that weight classes are just for people who know they can't beat the big guys. To him, it's just objective reality that smaller fighters are just playing safe. He tells them that size and power are the only things that truly matter in a fight. Setsuna doesn't say anything at first, just staring him down while Aikita panics in the back. She steps forward, her school shoes clicking on the mat. She's glad they agree. Then she drops the bomb. She wants the heavyweight champ to fight her right now. The whole gym goes dead silent as the tiny schoolgirl challenges the national champion. Akita's jaw hits the floor while Fuwa stares her down, trying to see if she's serious. Aikita tries to talk some sense into her, wondering if she's finally lost her mind. Setsuna ignores him and starts shadowboxing, acknowledging that Fuwa is at the top of his sport. The coach tries to kick them out for causing trouble, but the energy in the room is already shifting. Fuwa repeats her words, sensing a challenge to everything he stands for. Setsuna argues that having rules is exactly what makes MMA a sport instead of real violence. She lists off the violations: eye gouging, biting, and headbutts, things he'd never face in a ring. To her, a fight with that many restrictions isn't a real fight at all. She knows those rules are there to prevent murder, but to her, that's just avoiding the truth. Fuwa keeps it professional, claiming he's the strongest because he dominates under those conditions. Setsuna just gives him a manic smile and tells him he's dead wrong. She brings her fist right up to his throat, telling the champ it's time to defend his title for real. The guys in the background laugh, thinking she's just a hilarious kid with a death wish. But Fuwa sees something in her eyes. He realizes she isn't joking about wanting a piece of him. Setsuna is delighted. She's finally found the kind of unfiltered violence she craves. Fuwa realizes she isn't just talking big. She genuinely thinks she can take him, and that's something he just can't ignore. He agrees to spar, but he has one condition. He's a professional, and if he really lets loose, things are going to get messy. Setsuna just sighs, acting like he's being a total buzzkill. She gives him a smug grin, telling him he's about to find out exactly how outmatched he really is. Aikita is having a full-blown crisis in the corner as the other gym members gather to watch the madness. They set the ground rules: 1 5-minute round. If she gets knocked out or taps out, the game is over. Setsuna is practically vibrating with excitement. Fuwa, on the other hand, is dead serious. The coach begs Fuwa not to break her, but the champ just points out that injuries are part of the job description. The clock starts ticking down from 5 minutes. Setsuna doesn't waste a second, lunging at him with a look of pure joy on her face. She goes straight for a low blow, leaving Aikita and the coach absolutely mortified. But Fua is too fast. He catches her fist in his massive glove before it can connect. He's completely unfazed, telling her he knew exactly where she was aiming. She doesn't stop, immediately pivoting for a strike to his eyes, but Fua is already ahead of her. She's moving with terrifying speed, her face a mask of focus as she pours on the pressure. But Fua is like a brick wall, blocking every desperate strike she throws. He realizes her whole flurry was just a distraction to set up a kick. Aikita is stunned that the champ could read her every move so easily. He has no idea what she's going to try next. Fua decides he's played enough defense. He tells her it's his turn now. He steps in with a jab, the most basic move in the book, but one that's been perfected over a career. It's a low-risk, strategic move meant to keep an opponent pinned back. But when you're a 111-kilogram heavyweight champion, there's no such thing as a simple jab. The punch lands like a freight train, connecting squarely with Setsuna's face. The force of the impact sends her flying backward as Aikita watches in total horror. She hits the mat hard, and Fua stands over her, looking almost regretful. He tells her it's over, admitting that he couldn't bring himself to hold back that time. The impact was brutal, blood spatters as she goes down. Aikita is frozen, staring at her in disbelief. He remembers her being so untouchable, but now she's just a bloodied girl on the gym floor. She's been struck down by a single, professional punch, and for a second, it looks like she's finished. Fua asks if she's okay and tells her to take it easy, sounding like a nice guy again. But while the coach is panicking, Setsuna is looking up with a look that says she's anything but done. As soon as he lets his guard down, she lunges again, aiming for his head. Everyone is shocked she's even moving, but Fua manages to get a hand up just in time. It was another bait. She transitions instantly into a flying armbar. The gym erupts in chaos as they realize she just pulled off a pro-level submission move. The coach realizes the terrifying truth. She took that heavyweight jab on purpose just to get close enough to lock this in. She's got the arm fully extended, and she's not letting go for anything. The coach starts screaming for Fua to tap out before his arm snaps like a dry twig. Instead of tapping, Fua uses his sheer mass to haul her off the ground. He slams her into the mat with a bone-jarring thud, trying to break the hold. The coach is hysterical, convinced Fua just killed her, but the champ says he managed to pull his weight at the last second. Fua is genuinely impressed. He admits that she surprised him, not expecting someone like her to even exist. He lists off her skills, the perfect armbar, the ruthless eye strikes, and the precise kicks. To him, these are all signs of a veteran with real combat experience. Setsuna just beams at him, blood running down her face as she chirps back a thank you for the compliment. Fua's expression becomes grim. He tells her that because of those skills, he actually feels sorry for her. Setsuna watches him silently as he begins to explain the cold, hard truths of the fighting world. He gestures to his own massive, muscular frame, explaining that in the world of MMA, size and weight are a massive, insurmountable advantage. He tells her bluntly that she could never be the strongest in the world. Her physical limits were decided before she was even born. It's a harsh reality check. He tells her she doesn't have what it takes and that she needs to start by admitting it. But Setsuna isn't discouraged. She just laughs it off like it's the funniest thing she's ever heard. Her gaze sharpens, becoming almost animalistic as she tells him it's time to put those theories to the test. The fight explodes into motion again. Setsuna lunges forward, landing solid strike right on the champion's jaw. They're trading blows at a dizzying speed, the sound of impact echoing through the gym. The coach is speechless. He can't believe a teenage girl is actually keeping up with a heavyweight pro's technique and speed. Aikita watches from the sidelines, realizing that while they might look evenly matched, there's one fatal difference. They both throw a punch at the exact same time, both fists connecting squarely with the other's face. But the difference in power is undeniable. Setsuna's head snaps back as blood sprays from the impact of Fua's heavyweight punch. Even as she takes the hit, her eyes are wide and focused, refusing to back down even for a second. Fua manages to ground her again, pinning her to the mat as the clock continues to wind down to 2 minutes and 50 seconds. From a dominant mount, he gives her a choice: endure nearly 3 more minutes of this punishment or just admit defeat. Setsuna doesn't look like she's anywhere near quitting. Bloodied and pinned, she just gives him a terrifying, ecstatic grin.